Lead orange and black. This is Sports Phone KNBR. Sponsored by Industrial Metal Supply. On the Sports Leader. Check the live stream on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
1-2. McRae strikes out swinging. And that ends the game. So Ginkel comes in, gets the final couple outs. And the Diamondbacks get a huge win for them. They salvage one against the Giants. This final road trip of the year is over, and the Giants had arguably their best trip of the year. They go 7-2.
All right, Dave Fleming on the call there. Welcome in. Sports Phone KNBR here again on a Wednesday. John Dickinson with you for the next hour plus as we keep this thing rolling until 11 o'clock here tonight on the Sports Leader. 808 KNBR. The number 415-808-5627 as the Giants do lose that series finale. As you heard Flem describe, 8-2 the final from the desert. So the Diamondbacks get the finale and get the season series against the Giants, winning 7 out of 13. But the Giants still take the series, and they take 7 of 9 on the road trip against the Orioles, Royals, and the Diamondbacks, but the Giants do see their record dip again below the 500 mark, and they're going to have to go sweep the last 3 against the Cardinals if they want to finish above 500. One of the last 3, and you get a 1-game improvement over last year. 2 of the last 3, and you'd end up 81 and 81, and then a sweep is what the Giants would need here over the final 3 at home to finish up with a 82 and 80 or above 500 record. They finished 38 and 43 on the road. Those 81 games now in the books, and 41 and 37 currently with the 3 games to go at Oracle Park on Friday. Some thoughts on this one, and again, the number to join the conversation is 808-KNBR, 415-808-5627. That is the Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line as well. Same number, and you can give me a call or shoot me a text at that number. Also, as always, appreciate everybody watching on YouTube and Twitch as well. Here we got the great Raf Corral in our San Francisco studios. So give me a call. You'll talk to Raf, and he'll put you through if you want to weigh in on this Giants road trip, which still overall is a positive one. The 5-game winning streak, though, snapped by the Diamondbacks, that 5-game winning streak since the Giants were mathematically eliminated going back to last Thursday. Tough outing for Mason Black. Couldn't locate the fastball. 5 walks for Mason Black in this one, and it was really the second and the third inning that did Mason Black in. He also allowed 5 hits to go with the 5 walks in the 2 2/3. So he pitches into the third, gives up 4 earned, and that was it as Black drops to 1-5. So a step back off of what was the best start in Kansas City of Mason Black's career. We'll see where he figures in the plans for the 2025 season. I think if he's still in the Giants organization, he's somebody I think probably who still needs a little bit more time in the minors. He wouldn't project, and you look at him finishing up with the 6.44 ERA on the season unless he gets a couple of relief innings, which obviously you wouldn't expect here with just 3 days of rest and him being a starter. So his season ends with the 2 2/3 tonight and a 6.44 ERA overall. Probably going to need a little more seasoning at the beginning of next year in the minor leagues. So as we look at everything in the micro, how did it apply tonight, and the macro, where do some of these young players fit for 2025? I think Mason Black is still showed himself to be a step behind some of the other young starters. Obviously, a Kyle Harrison, who would project to be in the Giants rotation next year. Hayden Birdsong, I think, at this point has proven to be farther along than Mason Black, although I don't even think Birdsong necessarily is a lock to be a member of the Giants rotation at the beginning of next year. A lot of that's going to be determined, I think, by whether or not they keep Blake Snell and just how veteran-laden the Giants look to be. I know if Farhan Zaidi's in charge next year, and we'll continue to get into that as we have the last couple of nights with now just 3 games to go in the season. Now, Farhan mentioned last week, flat out, straight up, that the Giants are going to need to have a little bit more veteran pitching depth in the starting rotation. I think that rings true regardless of whether he winds up being the person in charge here. We'll get the formal news on that, yay or nay for Farhan for 2025, coming up here at some point between now and probably a week from now, I would imagine, at the latest, with the Giants wrapping up the season at home on Sunday against the St. Louis Cardinals. So 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627 to join the conversation. Zach Gallen, terrific on the Arizona side of things. We talked about Mason Black's struggles with location. Zach Gallen, after the Giants had jumped out to the 1-0 lead, and then the Diamondbacks were able to answer right back to take the 3-1 lead, then add on to make it 4 and 5-1. And Zach Gallen just kind of put it on cruise control once he got the lead. The knuckle curve, outstanding. 11 strikeouts for Zach Gallen. The Giants with just 2 hits against Gallen, and Gallen controlling things with only 2 walks. And that's a win that improves him to 14-6 on the year, and a win for Arizona that they really had to get now with 3 games to go for them. They're going to take on the Padres over the weekend, and they keep their 1-game lead over the Braves currently for that final wild card spot in the National League. They also keep pace with the Mets. Mets and Braves supposed to be playing each other today and tomorrow, but due to the hurricane and the inclement weather, those 2 games postponed to Monday if needed in Atlanta. So kind of a wild scenario there. But either way, Arizona needed a win to keep their lead at this point as they battle not only with the Mets potentially to move up to the second wild card, but the Mets and Diamondbacks and Braves are all 3 teams that are fighting for those final 2 spots. The Padres clinching their playoff spot last night down in L.A., and the Dodgers looking to get a win over the Padres in Game 2 of that series. Tying run, though, on second base at Dodger Stadium. We'll keep you updated on that, and the Dodgers have just finished off the Padres 4-3, the final there. So the Dodgers now with a 3-game lead in the division with the 4 games to go. 1 more between those 2 teams and then the 3-game weekend set. So the Dodgers' magic number is 2. All right, let's go ahead and pause here quickly. 808 KNBR. Couple of lines open if you want to jump in and join the conversation. Thoughts on tonight's game? Thoughts on the future of the Giants? Still a great trip, but who are your keepers for 2025? We'll kind of review that coming up next, and we can also get into some 49ers conversation between now and 11. Giants lose to the Snakes, 8-2 the final. You heard it right here on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
2-2 pitch is hit to left center field. Into the gap. It's going to hop on the turf and roll up against the wall. Coming to third is Conforto. He gets the go sign. Rounding third, and he will score into second. Fitzgerald with a double. It's 1-0 Giants.
Giants fans, this is your hub to have your voice heard. Sports Phone KNBR. Streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
All right, Tyler Fitzgerald, one of the bright spots for the Giants. He drives in a run there. Other RBI to Elliot Ramos, as Ramos continues to swing the bat well. 2 for 3 tonight for Ramos. Fitzgerald 1 for 4. Not a lot going with the bats tonight. Tonight more indicative as the Diamondbacks beat the Giants 8-2. The final of a lot of the Giants' losses over the course of this season. Just too many strikeouts. And yes, Zach Allen is a great pitcher, but the Giants' lack of two-strike approach back on full display, I thought, in this one. And still a reminder, despite the quality trip for San Francisco and finishing 7-2 against 3 really good teams in Baltimore, Kansas City, and Arizona, that the Giants still have some improvements to make and some changes that are going to have to be made to this roster. And I think, in addition to being maybe a little bit more athletic of a team on the bases and defensively, middle infield, I think, and at least in a corner outfield spot, obviously they're going to get Jung-Hoo Lee back. They got to have a little more contact in addition to having a little more power as they look to retool the lineup and get more production up and down the lineup and more thumpers, I think, toward the top and the middle of the lineup to knock down some of the guys that they have that have produced a slot or two in the lineup and just make it a much deeper, much more effective group collectively. And then you can start to look at the margins and some of the swing players in terms of guys that are going to be at AAA and up and down from the minors. But Tyler Fitzgerald and Elliot Ramos, even tonight in defeat against a quality pitcher, those are the two guys that are doing the work for San Francisco, and those are a couple of the guys who obviously are in the plans for the Giants next year. I think Ramos, as I've talked about a lot, in left field, Tyler Fitzgerald either at shortstop or second base, or potentially somebody that flexes around. You get his bat in the lineup, but he plays different positions across the diamond. But those two among the keepers for sure. The questions regarding what do you do at first base and right field and DH, and do you have to get a more steady shortstop? I mean, all of those things will linger. But Tyler Fitzgerald and Elliot Ramos coming through for the Giants tonight, but a night where everybody who got an at-bat tonight struck out at least once. And Grant McCray had the 4-strikeout sombrero, 0 for 4 with 4 Ks. Tyler Fitzgerald struck out 3 times, even though he had the RBI double to bring in a run. And so the strikeouts everywhere. Matt Chapman, a couple of strikeouts, but everybody for the Giants tonight had at least one strikeout among their hitters, and there have just been too many games this season where it's 11, 13, 15. Tonight, 17 strikeouts. Zach Allen with 11 of those in the 6th inning. So that's something that's going to have to improve. And then where do you think Mason Black fits for next year? 2 2/3 tonight, struggling with command, 5 walks, 5 hits, unable to build on what was the best start of his career in his last outing against the Royals. And that was a question that came in on the Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line, which was, how does Giants management view Mason Black and his future with the team after his rookie season, looking to develop him further or seeking more established pitching options? Touched on this a little bit before the break. I think they're looking for more established pitching options. I think they definitely need more established depth. I think Mason Black is somebody that they would view to be a starter. I know there was some conversation to maybe do they view him more as a reliever. That was from the 408 on the Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line, so appreciate that chiming in. Cole and Los Gatos, thank you for reaching out. But, I think he's more of a 6-7 depth piece in the minors that comes up if you have injury. Now, look, Farhan Zaidi said a couple of weeks ago that one area, if he's going to be in charge next year, that he feels they're going to have to improve is more veteran pitching depth and guys who can have the ability to come in and step in if a rotation has some injuries. So I think they're looking for more established pitchers. If you can keep Blake Snell, that's a great start with Logan Webb and Blake Snell. Now it's going to be difficult to keep Blake Snell. We'll see what Robbie Ray ultimately does. And if he ends up being healthy, I think Kyle Harrison's got a spot in the rotation. And so I would still say at that point you're looking at 1 or 2, maybe even 3, if Blake Snell isn't around next year, veterans that you're looking to pepper in that rotation, because it's not only taking the heat off of somebody like Mason Black and not thinking that he has to be in the rotation, which I would say he definitely is not going to be in the rotation, but even Hayden Birdsong, as well as he's pitched at times, I think you want to protect having to lean on him so much at the beginning of next year if the Giants are truly going to be all in on trying to be a contender next year. So I think they're looking for multiple veteran arms. Again, not necessarily front end of the rotation, especially if they're able to bring back Blake Snell, but guys that, middle of the rotation and maybe a swing type of guy that you can have be a bullpen guy that can get a start as well. 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. As it is John Dickinson, your sports phone, KNBR, as the Giants lose 8-2 to the Arizona Diamondbacks on this Wednesday. They still complete the road trip 7-2. And yes, 415 on the Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line, the Giants do need more veteran pitching. It was a fault of this season, the fact that they had to get a little too young too fast in the rotation. It is part of the story as to how this season got away from the Giants. Now, yes, it was also not having enough quality hitters, but there were too many times they had to lean on young pitchers this year in roles that those young pitchers were not ready for. And too many times they had to rely on openers in games, which taxed their bullpen. So, yeah, I realize sometimes Giants fans get frustrated at the notion of needing more veterans, but they need more veterans, and they need more prime veterans. Veterans doesn't mean old. Veteran can mean 26, 28, 30, guys in their prime. Veterans don't mean over-the-hill 34, 35, 40-year-olds if you're San Francisco. So, yeah, sorry to hit you with the truth serum on this Wednesday night, and have a good one, 415, but that's just the reality of the situation for the Giants looking into next year. So 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. Got more text messages to get to, but let's get out to the phones. Do have a line open, but Roy in San Leandro is up here first tonight on the Sports Leader. Hey, Roy, what's going on tonight, my man?
Hey, how's it going, John? Thanks a lot for taking my call. I give the Giants a lot of credit. They did. They made some teams. They showed some teams what they could do. Some tenders. But I agree with your opening monologue about the Giants could use maybe, to me, just one more good starter. I don't know about Robbie Ray, but I hope in all detail that they could bring Snell back, but it doesn't look like it. But I hope he would maybe, at least, because the Giant fans have treated him well, and so have the front office, that he could maybe come back one more season. But at the same time, though, I still think that they need maybe one bat. They need one more good bat, because those young pitchers, they've shown that they can pitch in the major leagues, John. I mean, it's no question about that guy named Roop, okay, and then you got the other guy, the young lefty, Harrison. I mean, they need to, these other, let's just say if they bring in another pitcher, like you said in the opening monologue, well, they can help lead the staff. And then especially if the Giants could get maybe another big bat to go along with it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think they need two bats. And that's even with Ramos being penciled in and Chapman already signed, and what Fitzgerald's brought to the table in terms of his power with doubles and homers. I think they need two bats. And because we've talked about it, it's right field and I think it's first base where they're going to need it. And as far as the pitching, though, I just don't think you can – and you brought up Landon Roop, and I think he's going to make the start on Friday against the Cardinals. He's been real strong. I think he's somebody that could be a rotation piece toward the back end. I think he's somebody that also could be a reliever. The thing that I wouldn't want next year, Roy, is to be too dependent on too many young guys to have to pitch effectively. You want to be able to mix them in, and let's say it is Snell. If it's Webb and Snell, and that's your top two, and we'll throw Robbie Ray out of the mix, I am not comfortable, and you may disagree with this, and others may disagree with this. I would not be comfortable in saying that the next 3 or 4 pitchers, because you need more than 5, even though 5 are going to be in your rotation at any given time, for it to be Harrison and Birdsong and Roop and Mason Black as basically your 3, 4, 5, 6, that to me isn't going to cut it. You need at least one more veteran with Snell. I think you need probably 2 more veterans to pepper in there. And again, it doesn't mean that the young guys aren't going to get opportunities. It's just that you have a little bit more balance in case things go wrong. And you also give the young pitchers a little bit of taking the pressure off on a team that's going to have playoff expectations next year. And make no mistake, Roy, the Giants are going to have playoff expectations next year. That's just reality. Nobody is looking at this thing like they're going into a rebuild for next year. It has been too long with the one winning season going back since 2016, and we all know what year it was. So to me, you don't want to put that much pressure on the young guys, even if you have a strong belief that they can perform, and Birdsong and Roop, as you mentioned, have been a big part of that.
Okay, That's true. I agree with you. I agree with you 100% about that. But I just want to say before I let you go real quick, though, John, that if you notice in both leagues, American and national, haven't you noticed how the back catching have went down? I mean, all these guys stealing these bases, even the guys that don't even run that fast have managed to steal bases. That back catching position has went down some. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think, Roy, I think it has to be something that's looked at moving forward here. And thank you for the call. I want to sneak Peter in here before we have to take a break. Peter in San Jose next year on the Sports Leader. Apologies, had a little technical issue there here in Roy toward the end. But Peter, we'll get to you here on Sports Phone on this Wednesday night. Hey, Peter.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. What's on your mind tonight as far as looking ahead to next year?
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying about the pitching rotation because yes, this team does need depth in the center of the order. No doubt, we just don't have that one guy. And Chapman's been a stud, but it's hard to know if he's going to be this productive next year. He's hit 37 home runs, but it's just you really would rather have him as a fifth or a sixth hitter. But to my point was, the whole thing that's been wrong with the last 3 years is there's not a set rotation. It's openers. This year it wasn't openers, but we have Robbie Ray, but we don't know when he's coming back. We got Blake Snell in March. I know I was excited. Everybody was excited. But you had him not be himself for 3 months and really cost the team, and he's been a stud ever since. And then you have a bunch of rookies. And I think even without knowing if Blake Snell is coming back, I do like our chances a lot better this year because you're going to get a full year, full spring training of Robbie Ray. You have 3 or 4 good young pitchers to choose from, and you can throw Hicks even in the mix with I really like Landon Roop out of all the 4 and Birdsong. Harrison's been okay, but you really need to get, I think if you can't get Snell back, you need to go after Max Fried or Burns. I don't know what you think. I think it's doable without a second co-ace to Logan Webb, but I just think you're playing with fire if you don't go and get a second guy unless you get some serious hitters because it's just you want to have the best chance.
Yeah, and you mentioned Hicks, and I had a texter mention Jordan Hicks as well. I'm not sure if they're going to project Hicks to be a starter or look to make him a reliever. Now, remember, part of the reason he came to the Giants was because he wanted to be a starter, and the Giants, more than other teams, were willing to at least give him half the season to work through it. And he clearly tired by the midpoint of the season. So, mixed results. He was pretty good early, but clearly tired by the middle of the year as he had pitched more innings than he ever had, obviously predominantly being a closer and a reliever. So Hicks is another interesting one. I agree with you. I don't think you necessarily, Peter, need an ace. It does make it easier, a second ace, basically, a Webb Fried or a Webb Snell. But I do think you're going to need one more vet mixed in, even if you're looking at Hicks and Roop and Birdsong. And I agree with you. I think Birdsong and Roop are the two that would project to be able to be the most effective. I'd almost put Mason Black in another category. He needs a lot more seasoning, I think, at this point in the minors before getting back into that mix. So, and I agree with you on Chapman and Ramos and Fitzgerald. I'd feel a lot better about those 3 if you had a 2 and a 3 hitter that were a little bit better than those guys and had a back of a baseball card with some numbers on it where you know what you're going to get, and then you can move Chapman 3, 4, 5, somewhere in there, Ramos down. You move everybody down a little bit, and it just makes everybody more effective. So I think that's something that the Giants are going to have to really look at. I think it's multiple hitters and at least one hitter that's better than all the hitters that they currently have on that roster is going to be how they have to look to do it.
Do you think, it'd be awesome to get Soto, who wouldn't love that? But do you think there's a chance of a sign and trade for Vladimir Guerrero Jr.?
Yeah, I don't think they can get Soto. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is interesting. I mean, that is somebody I do think that the Giants will have their eye on. Like, I think that is the case. And he's a free agent after 2025. So you would trade for him, and then you would hope that you can sign him, basically. Otherwise, you wouldn't want to give up a lot for him because you'd only have him for 2025. So, yeah, I think he's a name that will come up with the Giants this offseason as far as trying to get him into the mix and try. I think the Giants have a better shot at trying to get guys in-house and then see that it isn't so bad here and then look to sign them, kind of like what they did with Matt Chapman. Different scenario because Chapman was a free agent. But Chapman had played in the Bay. He had played for Bob Melvin. He did know Farhan Zaidi. So he came and was comfortable and liked it here and took the deal, the long-term deal after the fact. I think in some ways, I've said this, the Giants have to be more open to forcing players via trade to come here and learn that it isn't so bad, and that you can be truly beloved by the fan base, and the city's pretty cool. Don't believe everything you see or read, and that this organization's willing to pay. Sometimes you just have to get somebody in to kind of make them believe all those things are true. So I think that's the number one area where they've got to be more creative moving forward than they've been in the past. It's look to trade for a hitter or two because the free agent route hasn't worked. Peter, thank you for the call. Appreciate it. 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. We've got a couple of lines open. We'll get to Bar Fighter coming up, but let's go ahead and pause here. We'll come back. Giants lose tonight 8-2 to the Diamondbacks. 3 games to go, but we're talking about next year. Who are the keepers and where do the Giants get better for 2025? It's John Dickinson on a Wednesday here on the Sports Leader.
we'll see, right? I mean, Grant will make some strides. First time around, he's strikes out some to begin with, but maybe a little, knowing the league a little bit more, how he's getting pitched, facing guys for the second time around, and then maybe trying to shorten up the times a little bit next year. I think as a group we have to be better at that.
Sound off on the sports leader. Sports phone KNBR keeps rolling right here and on the all-new KNBR app.
All right, Bob Melvin there. Giants lose to the Diamondbacks 8-2. It's John Dickinson back here keeping it going to 11 o'clock. Sports phone KNBR post-Giants game edition. Giants are done on the road for 2024 as they play their final game and have their best road trip of the season, and one of the best road trips in franchise history, at least for a 9-game road trip. 7-2, tied for the second best record in Giants franchise history on a 9-game road trip. So some specifics there. Obviously, fewer 9-game road trips than, say, 6-game road trips or 7-game road trips, which are relatively common. But yeah, 7-2, tied for second best all time. Pretty incredible to think. And the Giants doing the bulk of it after they'd been eliminated. They finish the 81-game road slate at 38-43 and are now 79-80. So they're going to have to sweep the last 3 against the Cardinals, and the Cardinals come in at 81-77, out of the race, but suddenly have won 4 straight games, and they'll come to Oracle Park after taking on the Rockies, and they will be looking for a winning record themselves, and they could have it wrapped up with their game against Colorado tomorrow. So 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. That is the number to give me a call or shoot me a text here. If you want to react to this one, Mason Black struggled. The Giants struck out 17 times. The strikeouts have got to be cut down on next year. The Giants need more contact in addition to more power and a better two-strike approach. Again, you can withstand the two-strike issues and some of the strikeouts if you're hitting for a lot of power, and the Giants top to bottom have not hit for enough power to deal with the level of strikeout that they've had up and down the lineup, and there's just been too many. I get it, league-wide, strikeouts are an issue, but too many nights where it's been 12, 13, 15, tonight 17 strikeouts, and everybody in the lineup with a strikeout as well, and that's something that's going to have to get cleaned up. Mason Black still needs some seasoning for me in the minors next year as you start to pencil in what a rotation might look like for San Francisco in 2025. So 808 KNBR, back to the phones we go, and it's Bar Fighter in San Jose next here on the Sports Leader. Hey, Bar Fighter.
Rocking the JD, man.
What's going on, brother?
Hey, so I know you're down on Mason Black. I'm telling you, he doesn't need any seasoning. This team is not going anywhere into the playoffs for the next at least 2 years. So put him in there. Nix any kind of signing with Snell, because that's not going to help us. Chapman, I actually agree. I didn't agree with the 6-year contract. He's probably got about 3 good years left, but this whole team is riding on pitching, and pitching is on Oracle Park. It's not going to be on hitting home runs or anything like that. So what Bar fan, my inner psyche, has to do in his last year of his contract is just focus on pitching. Let's see some progress. Let's see something moving forward with this team, and it all has to be about pitching.
Well, I think you could find pitching. Like, to me, you can find pitching on the cheap. I think you can find, even if Snell doesn't come back, I think you can find veterans. I think you can mix in the young guys. We can agree to disagree on Mason Black. I think both Birdsong and even Roop are ahead of Mason Black at this point. But you can find pitching. The Giants have been able to do that in the Farhan Zaidi era. What they haven't been able to do is find enough hitting in every single year, other than the 1 year it all clicked as a fluke in 2021. And that wasn't just the guys that Farhan plucked off the scrap heap or other organizations that panned out. It was also Buster Posey and Brandon Belt and Brandon Crawford collectively having, one last great run for the ages together, and in some cases the best offensive seasons of their careers, in Belt and Crawford's as examples. And so it was a lot of things that went right. Every other year, this team hasn't had enough offense under Farhan. And so to me, the focus has to be offense, because, and I'm speaking to if Farhan is back next year, even, he's been able to find pitching. You're always going to be more apt to find guys that want to come and pitch at Oracle Park. So to me, it's important, but it feels less pressing because I'm more confident in the Giants organization's ability to get quality pitching, even on the fringe, bar fighter. It's the hitting to me, and the athleticism and the better approach. Those are the things that I think have to change, and you have to look from outside the organization to improve.
Yeah, and that was the last year of the legacy. That was the last year of the World Series legacy. And I get it, why a lot of people are down on. And honestly, I do not like pile-ons. And there's a pile-on Barfan, my inner psyche, and I don't like pile-ons. But let him give him one more year. Let's see how he can be creative and how he can get some hitting into this team so we can get into a competitive rather than the mediocrity competitiveness and get into a playoff position.
Yeah, thanks, Barfighter. Appreciate the call. Again, I'm not giving Farhan another year. We'll see what happens over the course of the next week. I know there's been reports, and Farhan did his gaggle with the beat writers in Arizona and basically admitted that he doesn't know, that he's being evaluated as he continues to plan as if he's going to be here, but doesn't totally know. And so I think we're going to find out in the coming days. I think things, and I mentioned this last night, to me, without any insider info, kind of reading the tea leaves, it feels to me as if they're either still deciding, which to me is an indicator that if you're still deciding, you probably should just make the move and move on, or the decision's already been made when you're out of the race at the end of August, and a disappointment in many of the same ways that you've been a disappointment in 5 of 6 years. You just need something new. And obviously some of the reporting here, and it was Andy Baggerly of The Athletic, with the note that his sense had been, and I think he said it on KNBR as well, that some on the board in terms of the ownership just feel change is necessary. I wholeheartedly can understand, and I think every Giants fan out there can understand why that would be the case at this particular point in time. So 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. Giants lose tonight 8-2, but again, as everything has been really for the last couple of weeks, it's more about the big picture than the small accomplishments, although the Giants do, and credit where credit is due, go 7-2 on this road trip to Baltimore and Kansas City and Arizona to wrap up the year 38-43 on the road, and they're back home with 3 to go at 1 under with the 3-game series at Oracle Park over the weekend against the St. Louis Cardinals before 2024 comes to a close. We'll get to Derek and San Mateo coming up. I do have a couple of lines open. We'll get to more text messages as well on the Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line, and call it a night with one final segment straight ahead right here on the Sports Leader.
Speak your mind on the sports leader. Sports phone KNBR keeps coming at you. Streaming live at twitch.tv/the sports leader.
All right, final segment. John Dickinson with you here as we go till 11. Giants lose 8-2 to the Arizona Diamondbacks. Back in action after an off day tomorrow as they'll get back to the Bay tonight. Take on the Cardinals at Oracle Park on Friday. Who's going to be the Willie Mack Award winner? Raf, I'm going to give you a minute to think on that one. I want to get your prediction for Willie Mack Award winner before we get out of here, because that's obviously going to be coming up on Friday before the Giants open up the 3-game series against the Cardinals. I'll give you my pick. I think it's kind of an obvious one. We'll see if we're on the same page. But, yeah, I'm going to get Raf's take, and I'll give you mine as far as the Willie Mack Award winner for the Giants this season. 808 KNBR, a couple of lines open. Probably could sneak in another one or two in addition to the handful that we have on the board here. So if you want to jump in, you can give Overnight Dave and Raf a call in our San Francisco studios, and we'll get you in here in the final 10 minutes or so of the program before we call it a night and head toward Thursday and then the weekend. So Derek in San Mateo, appreciate you for holding through the break. You're on the Sports Leader here on this Wednesday night. Hey, Derek. Derek, are you there?
Yeah.
Derek going once. Hey, what's up, Derek?
Yeah, sorry, I was in the bathroom. Hey, first off, I'm going to be at the A's game tomorrow. I heard you say you're doing 49ers, conference stuff, and so we're going to miss you at the last game. I don't know if you were able to get out to any of the games. So
I you know what? I'm debating. I may go over there. I do have a Warriors commitment tomorrow. The Warriors are actually having their season opening. Yeah, their season opening press conference with Kerr and Dunleavy are tomorrow in the afternoon. So I could maybe get out there before the game and hang out for an inning or two, and I'm still kind of debating it. I know I've got a lot of friends that are going to be out there, and it's just sad. I mean, I know you've heard me say it, and everybody kind of processes this whole thing differently, but I don't think anybody thinks what's happening is right. And I mean, it's just truly. It's heartbreaking and frustrating, and John Fisher is just gutless, and it's been horrible the way this whole thing has played out, and A's fans for a long time have deserved so much better, and I just in many ways you could see this coming for years, but it's still also hard to believe, Derek, that it's here tomorrow.
I mean, tomorrow's the day. So, I mean, I just hope we all at least have a little bit of celebration and enjoy the day. So, yeah, there's that. But I actually did call for the Giants, oddly enough.
Sure.
I just want to throw that in there. So just talking about the Giants, I've said this preseason when the Dodgers signed Ohtani and Yamamoto. I said, we're going to be behind the 8 ball for years. And look how the Dodgers are doing without Shohei pitching, with Yamamoto on the IL, with Walker Buehler out the entire year, without Trevor May the entire year. I mean, the fact that I know their players, it's crazy. And then the Padres are doing well too, right? So I don't expect for us to compete for years, and it's not a sexy option to say, hey, us, the Giants, former champions, big market team, we got to take a back seat for a while. But we got to take a back seat for a while. I mean, I was actually pretty optimistic when Farhan made the signings of Snell and Chapman, and remember Jorge Soler. Everybody remembers Jorge Soler, and yet here we are. So I think the Giants and the fan base has to just be realistic and say, hey, we just got to take our lumps for a couple years here, because sports is cyclical. We'll come back around, but let's not get too excited about our years. Let's let them have their years. Let's develop our system like we should have done, and not worry about our veterans too much, and just wait until 2028 or whatever, and we'll have our time. So for me, I don't feel that bad about, hey, we didn't have a great year. We didn't have a great year last year. We're not going to have a great year next year, because the Dodgers are just amazing. You can't compete with that. So anyway, that's my thing.
Well,
hope to see you at the game tomorrow. Let's all have a day of celebration tomorrow, JD.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, man. And I'll say this. I think it's difficult for the Giants to look to do that, do a legit rebuild on top of the fact now that they've made the playoffs one time since 2016 when the Cubs beat them in the division series and the bullpen blew up in Game 4 and the Cubs went on to win that World Series. I mean, you're talking about 8 years now where they've made the playoffs one time. You can't now say, oh, we're going to tear this thing down for 4 years and see you in 2028. Not to mention the fact that that's why Farhan Zaidi was hired. He was hired to not allow for that to happen. And I'll give you another reason I don't think the Giants can do that. It's the third wild card. It's the fact that the Dodgers could be the best team in the National League, and the Padres could even be the second best team in the National League, albeit that means you're going to be the 4 seed in the top wild card. There's still 2 other spots to be had in the postseason now where you at least get a 3-game series to win 2 if you can be that second or third wild card. So to me, the Giants believe that they should be able to cobble together between 85 and 90 wins and at least be in contention for that every single year. And that hasn't been the case now in either of the first 3 years of that extra wild card, in 22, 23, and now 24. And again, the first 2 years, Philly a couple of years ago, and last year Arizona, went to the World Series with that final spot that never would have made the playoffs before. So it's tough, but I would lean toward big market. Maybe you're not going to be the Dodgers. Maybe you're not going to be the Padres. But you can't tear it down to the studs when it's 7 of the last 8 years that you haven't made the playoffs and say, oh, well, now we're going to do the full-blown 4-year rebuild. Because then you're talking about a decade on the calendar, more than a decade, where you've been awful. And I just don't think you can tell a fan base that now. They could have done it in 2019 or 2020. They chose not to. 2021, I think, muddied those waters because I think they thought they were closer than they truly were. And then the last 3 years have been different versions of the same. So regardless, I think the Giants believe that they're close enough to where they should be able to at least contend to the final week of the season legitimately for the 5th or the 6th playoff spot in the National League. All you got to do is be a top half of the National League team to be in contention to that final week. So I would push back on that a little bit. Again, I wouldn't have pushed back on it had the Giants decided they wanted to go that route at any point here, really. 2019, 2020, COVID, I think, messed with it a little bit, and then they won 107 games, which you could look back now and say maybe that was the worst thing that could have happened, fun as it was for Giants fans to watch coming out of COVID. Dallas in Oak Grove, going to be the final call tonight. Hey, Dallas.
Hey, JD, how's it going?
I'm doing well tonight, my man. How are you?
Good. So, I mean, I think you're being a little hard on Mason Black. Yes, he was not good tonight, but his previous start, he was lights out. He was really good. So he's up and down. I think he should be given a chance to compete in spring. And the Giants really do have a lot of pitching depth. You're going to have Webb. You're going to have Ray. They're paying him a lot of money, so he's in there. Hicks they signed as a starter. He was their best pitcher for a lot of the year this year. Yes, he wore down, but they kind of knew that was going to happen, and he's going to be stronger going into next year. So you got 3 there. I do think you're right about needing to sign another veteran, whether that's Snell or a number 2 type of guy. I think you can never really have too much pitching depth. But then you've got, on that 5th spot, you've got Roop and Wynn and Black and
Birdsong
and Harrison. And, you just have there's like 6 guys that could compete for that role. And then you're going to have a plethora of pitching in the minor leagues going into the season. I don't know if they want to use that capital to make a trade and try and get a right fielder or a shortstop, something like that. I don't think they're going to go first base because they want to save room for Eldridge. But I don't know. There is a couple places to fill, but I see their pitching as their strength, and they have a lot of depth there.
Well, I think the pitching is going to have to be a strength, and I agree with you. If you're talking about maybe 4 guys for 2 spots and you let them all compete, like I'm open-minded on that. I do think Black is behind Birdsong and even Roop at this point, and that doesn't mean he can't go on and have a fine career. I just think he needs a little bit more seasoning than maybe the others. But to your point, you let it play out. You add another veteran to the mix. If Jordan Hicks is better, you're going to feel good about it. Like, again, I trust the Giants' ability to find pitching. That's one thing, and that's independent, really, of who the president of baseball operations is going to be. I think the pitching should be strong. I think even the bullpen should be strong. They've developed some young guys that have really fit in nicely in that pen, and that's even with Doval having an awful year, overall. So I think pitching should always be the strength of a Giants team, and I do think they have a lot of options in play next year, but I still think they do have to get one more vet. Thanks, Dallas. Appreciate it. All right, before we call it a night here, Raph,
hey,
I gotta get your Willie Mack Award prediction. I've got mine.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want me to go first, or
I'll try this. At first,
okay.
I was thinking Walker just because of the surprise of just being a closer, but I really like Chapman. I mean, he was probably the most consistent. And especially with this Giants lineup where there wasn't much consistency. He brought the power, he brought the defense. So and a lot of the players liked him. So I would say definitely Chapman.
Yeah, Chapman was where I was going. I think you could make a case for Elliot Ramos as well, basically being cast aside to the minors, one of the first guys sent to minor league camp in spring training and battles all the way back and takes advantage of the opportunity to be an all-star. I think there could be some votes for him, but no, I'm going Matt Chapman as well, just based on the way that he carries himself every single day in terms of just the hard-nosed attitude and playing every day and playing as effectively as he had at third base and just being a leader and an inspiration and a guy who wanted to stay. He came here and he wanted to stay. I think there's something to that. Again, voted by the teammates, though, so maybe that gets a little bit less weight in terms of the ability to want to stay. But just a pro's pro and a leader. We're on the same page, Raf. Great minds think alike. I'm thinking Matt Chapman for the Willie Mack Award winner on Friday. Who would your honorable mention be here before we end it?
I definitely think Walker, because at first he was my first choice, and he definitely surprised me. I did not think we had another closer on this Giants team. After Duvall, and after he imploded, it's just kind of nice to have someone to fill in that role.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, it's a good call. I'm going to go Ramos as my honorable mention pick, but I think Matt Chapman takes it home. We'll see before the Giants take on the Cardinals on Friday. Raf, great stuff, my man. As always, appreciate you not only tonight, but working with you all season long here on Sports Phone Giants postgame. Have a wonderful weekend. I know you're going to be working throughout the weekend, and we'll catch up again soon.
Thanks, JD. Yeah, basketball season around the corner. Watch out.
Right around the corner. Raf Corral, appreciate him. We got Overnight Dave in there as well. Appreciate him. Cole LaPelt doing some things as far as cutting up the highlights and the sound and all of that. So a wonderful effort by everyone. I'm John Dickinson. On tomorrow with Tolbert and Copes, 2:50, we've got an announcement about our Dubs season and Dubs coverage coming up here on the Sports Leader. So stay tuned for that. We'll talk again tomorrow. Giants lose tonight 8-2. And you heard it all right here on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the Sports Leader.